Welcome to the notes on factoring trinomials. And again, we call it x in the form x squared plus bx plus c. All right, so all of these trinomials will have a leading coefficient of 1. So they'll always just have a 1 for that leading term for this section. Now, in order to understand factoring, all right, we've got to understand the distributive property. So before, we were doing problems like this. And if you remember to solve this, we would say, hey, it's x times x plus 1, and it would be 3 plus 3 times x plus 1. Everything in the first set of parentheses has to get multiplied by everything in the second set. So when we do that, we get x squared plus 1x plus 3x plus 3. And then we combine like terms. I'm going to rewrite that over here. So we'd have x squared. I'm going to do that in black. So we have x squared plus, I can combine these two terms, plus 4x. And then we'd have our plus 3. Okay, so now let's look at how this relates to our original. All right, we want to look at some patterns. Well, what do you notice about this 3 and this 1? Okay, well, when you multiply 3 times 1, it multiplies to this last term. Okay, so that last term, those two terms multiplies the last term. And then look what happens when you add 3 plus 1. 3 plus 1, well, that equals this middle term. So in this lesson, we're going to have to go from a trinomial back to this form. And to do that, we're going to have to recognize that pattern of this last term they must multiply to that number, and they must add to this middle number. And again, notice that in this middle number, this sign is important. It's plus 4. 3 plus 1 is positive 4. So you have to watch those signs. So that's the pattern. So now we know, let's take a look at 3 quick examples. All right, so we've got x squared plus 7x plus 10. Well, we know that our final answer, all right, is going to be, when we factor it, it's going to be those 2 sets of parentheses. Okay, it's going to come back to that form every time. So what we need to do is we need to make a chart, and we need to look at this number right here, this positive 10. So let me circle that, positive 10. So we need factors of 10, and then we need to know what they add up to. So let's do some factors, and it's positive 10. So it's going to be 1 and 10. All right, 1 times 10. What does that add up to? 11. What are the other factors of 10? 2 and 5. What does that add to? 7. Well, when you look at that, that's what we want. 2 times 5 adds up to 7. There's our plus 7 right here. So our final answer then, we know it's going to be x times x gives us the x squared. All right, and then we're going to do plus 2 plus 5 is our final answer. So our final answer is going to be x plus 2, x plus 5. Now, does it matter if you write x plus 5, x plus 2? No, it does not matter. There's your final answer. This helpful hint down here, again, doesn't matter which way you can write it. It can be x plus 2, x plus 5, how I wrote it, or you can write x plus 5, x plus 2, as long as those signs are correct. Okay, so it's all the pattern. You have to figure out what multiplies to the last number that adds to the middle number. So here we go. So this time, all right, we'll do the chart again. So now it's factors of 35, and these are the sum. Now let's look at the signs. This is a positive 35 here, so it must have multiplied to a positive 35, but it has to add to a negative 12. Well, the only way to multiply to a positive and add to a negative is if the factors are negative. So we only need negative factors, meaning negative times a negative. So let's take a look. Well, we've got negative 35 times negative 1. All right, that's positive 35. Well, negative 35 times negative 1, when you add those, that's going to be negative 36. How about negative 7, negative 5? Negative 7 times negative 5 is negative 35. When you add those two negatives together, it is negative 12. So that works. So when I rewrite my answer now, I know that we're going to have our x times x, because we multiply that, we get our x squared, and then it's going to be minus 7 minus 5. So there's an example where you have net multiplies to a positive, adds to a negative. There's your final answer. Let's take a look at one more. So now, let's make that t-chart here. We know our answer is going to be the double parentheses. We know it's going to be x times x to give us x squared. So we've got to look at negative 12. So we need factors. All right. And it's going to add up to a positive 4. So it's got to add to that. It's got to multiply to that one more time, right? So now we got to be careful. Since it multiplies to a negative, one side, it could be one of each side. So our list is going to be pretty big. We could have -1, +12, because in order to get a negative number multiplying, you got to have one of each side. But then you could also have -12, +1. You got to kind of check both. Well, -1 plus 12, all right, that's going to be 11. -12 plus 1 is -11. So we want to add up to +4. Again, these are our sums. So let's try, how about 6, -2? And then let's try -2, 6. Oh, sorry, I just wrote that the same way. Let's try -6, +2. Well, -6 plus -2 is 4. -6 plus 2 is -4. That doesn't work. We want it to be positive. That does work. Okay, so when I look at this one right here, that's going to work. I was going to also, guys, have you try -4, 3, and let's see, 4, -3, but we don't need to. We found our match. So our final answer then is going to be x plus 6. Watch those signs, -2. That is your final answer. So there you have the pattern on how we're going to factor trinomials.